Everyone. My name is Karthik. I'm pursuing a BTech in VVIT in Computer Science and Engineering. Today, let us discuss about a concept in probability and statistics called null hypothesis versus alternate hypothesis. So, null hypothesis means in this null hypothesis, we assume that there is no relationship between two variables. Whereas in alternative hypothesis, there is some relation between two variables, which means they both are dependent on each other. In null hypothesis, generally researchers and scientists try to reject or disapprove the null hypothesis. Whereas in alternative hypothesis, generally researchers and scientists try to accept or approve the null hypothesis. So in null hypothesis, if the null it is accepted, researchers have to make changes in their opinions and statements. Whereas in alternative hypothesis, it gets to accept that research do not have to make changes in their opinions and statements. When it comes to null hypothesis, no effect can be observed. I mean that there will be no effect in the output since we assume that there is no relation between the two variables. Whereas in alternate hypothesis, effects can be observed, that is, it affects the output or outcome of the problem. So, and here the testing process is implicit and indirect when it comes to the null hypothesis. Whereas in alternative hypothesis, testing process is explicit and direct, which means the test procedures we use are directly applied on the variables. In null hypothesis, it is denoted by H naught, whereas alternative hypothesis is represented as HA or H1. It is in null hypothesis, we generally try to reject it. So this is what our null hypothesis is, whereas in alternative hypothesis, it gets accepted if we fail to reject the null hypothesis. So we will consider the alternative hypothesis if and only if null hypothesis is rejected. So we will come to the alternative hypothesis. In null hypothesis, the p-value is significantly smaller than the significance level, whereas in the alternative hypothesis, the p-value is greater than the significant level. So that is why we go to alternative hypothesis. So in the null hypothesis, we can say that a population mean and a sample mean are same. We will check for that kind of operations. Whereas in alternative hypothesis, we will try to prove that there is a significant difference between the two variables or two quantities, which means there is a significant difference between the two variables like population mean, sample mean, proportions, etc. By this, mostly in null hypothesis we use something like two-tailed test, whereas in alternative hypothesis we use one-tailed test, like it is left-tailed or right-tailed. Null hypothesis, since we only use equal to or not equals to, we will just try to assume that there is relation or no relation. Whereas in alternative hypothesis, we will check for if population mean is greater than sample mean, or population proportion is greater than sample proportion, like that. So this is about null hypothesis and alternative hypothesis. As we can see that null hypothesis has significantly smaller p-value, whereas in the alternative hypothesis p has greater value. We also have a type 1 error and type 2 errors in these. If null hypothesis is accepted and it is correct, then it is accepted, it is called as type 1 error. In the same case, if alternative hypothesis is true but it is not accepted, then it will be considered as type 2 error. So by this we categorize these errors. Thank you so much.